Okay, let's listen to our learning. Shav the Beis Hamikdash immediately. Push Lema, Michiel Nassim Ben Sarah, and Aaron David Alevi Ben Menucha Adol Esther. Okay, we start the new Masechta, Rosh Hashanah. Mishnah starts about Rosh Hashanah. It's 4 Rosh Hashanahs. Yeah. What that means is that there's going to be four dates that we're going to count to different halachas. It's relevant that we have a starting date. The first one is B'Echad B'Nisan. The first day of Nisan is Rosh Hashanah L'Malachim, V'Lo Regalim. That's going to be the Rosh Hashanah for kings and for holidays. Rashi explains that the relevance for kings, and the Gemara is going to explain, is because they would make in the documents, they would write what year the document was written, and they would put it to the year of the king. Rashi spells it out that it's because of Shalom Malchus, to be on good terms with the king. So they would put that in. Taisva says we're dealing with Malchi Yisrael, we're not dealing with Shalom Malchus. It sounds like Shalom Malchus sounds like we're dealing with the Greeks or the Romans or something. Okay. So you have to put a date in the document. And what's the date that you put in the document? You put the date to the amount of years of that king. So if he became a king before Nisan, let's say in Adar, so at Nisan it's already in his second year. Yeah. How does the president? When does he start? He doesn't start on January 1st, does he?
No, January 20.
January 20. And when is he voted in? November. So he's voted in November. He starts in January 20. And when does he leave? He leaves January 20, 4 years later, right? Unless he's impeached. There's other examples also, but I don't want to mention that. Okay. And then for the holidays, we'll have to see in the Gemara later what the holidays, the significance is. Okay, another date.
You said this is for Jewish kings.
Yeah, well, Taisu says it's for Jewish kings. Rashi says it's for non-Jewish kings.
Gila says to when we say Bishnas, talk about is using this counting or not?
I don't know. Yeah. Now the question is, when did Achashverosh come to power? And when it says Bishna Shalosh Lamalchai, does that mean that it's really only 2.5 years because he came to power in Tishrei and we counted a full year? I don't know the ins and outs of that. Okay. Be'echad be'el Rosh Hashanah l'Ma'aser Behema. On the first of Elul, that's Rosh Hashanah for Ma'aser Behema. And the significance of this is that when you have 10 animals, you have to take Ma'aser. Now, let's say you have 9 animals, but then another one is born. But when was it born? It was born right after Elul. So that's not counted. That's the new. It's like taxes. You make more money in the next after January or whatever. It doesn't go on the last account. So that's the cutoff date for Ma'aser Behema. Actually, not allowed to mix the Ma'asers, the old with the new. You have to take it specifically for each year. So that's the Tanakama's opinion. Rabbi Lazar v'Rab Shimon Aimrim be'Echad b'Tishrei. They say that it's 1 month later. It's Echad b'Tishrei. Okay. Rabbi Lazar and Rab Shimon are students of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Lazar is Rabbi Lazar ben Shemua. It's not so common. Okay. Ve'echad b'Tishrei, Rosh Hashanah l'Shana v'Lashmitim v'Le'Yevus l'Netiyo l'Yerakas. We have a bunch of halachas that the first of Tishrei is relevant for. First is l'Shanim. We have to wait for the Gemara to figure out what that is. L'Shanim means for years. But l'Shmitim, that's quite obvious. That you have to, at least biblically, you have to stop working the field on Shemitah. Well, when does Shemitah begin? Echad b'Tishrei. And the same would apply for Yovel. Also, you're not supposed to work the field on Yovel. Is that how it works? Yeah, it's 2 years in a row. And other halachas of Yovel. Okay, Linatia means for planting. That's referring to Arla. That you have to wait 3 years for a tree to eat the fruit. Well, when do you start counting? When is the year up? It's not from when you plant it. It's when it hits Tishrei, then the year is completed. So as long as you got it into the ground, I think the rule is that from Tu B'Av takes 2 years to take root, and then it was in the ground for 1 month. It's considered a complete year, and Tishrei is the new year. So you really only have 25 months, and you've already had 3 years. Okay. Yeah, it gets a little confusing because after that you still have to wait for Tu B'Shvat or whatever. But anyway, that's how the years counted.
A full-grown tree, fruit tree that's 4 years old, but that's been in a pot. Someone gets it.
And then they replant it.
They have to start counting again.
I think it depends. It depends if the pot was in a place that if the pot was on the soil and it has a hole in it, then it's considered that it was in the ground. The problem is they usually transport it and they put it in a truck, and then it's considered that it was moved. But I think I'm not sure. It could be there's leniencies in Chutz La'aretz. Arla in Chutz La'aretz is more lenient than in Eretz Yisrael. Suffolk Arla is mutter. That's why you go to the store. You can buy any fruits. You don't have to ask. In Israel, you can't do that. Liurakis. Liurakis means for meisers. Also, you separate meisers for 1 year. You separate them separately from the following year. Well, what's the cutoff date? So it's Tishrei, Aleph Tishrei.
So Tishrei is the first of the tithing and tithing and
Arla.
Orla. Okay.
Yeah, and then for stopping to work in Shemitah and Yovel. Okay, now we're up to, we did Nisan, Elul, Tishrei, and the fourth one. Bechad B'Shvat, Rosh Hashanah Le'ilan. First of Shvat, that's Rosh Hashanah for the trees. Well, what's Rosh Hashanah for the trees? What does that do? Also Meiser. You have to take Meiser separately. Now, what does it mean that you take Meiser separately? Well, it turns out that the tree, the flower, when the flower falls off, I think that's Chanata. I think when the flower falls off and it leaves the bud, that's when the fruit is considered there. So if it flowered before the first of Shvat, or the other opinion is going to be Tu B'Shvat, then it's considered the previous year, and if it flowers afterwards, it's considered the following year. Kedivrei Beishamai, yeah, that's an interesting expression. Kedivrei Beishamai, like Beishamai says, Beisil Laimrim, Beisil say, B'chamisha Asarbai. It's actually the 15th, not the first of Shvat. So it's machlekes. We have 2 machlekes in this Mishnah. Meiser Behema was Echad Be'Elul or Tishrei, and we have a machlekes about Le'ilan, Rosh Hashanah Le'ilan. If it's the first of Shvat or the 15th. They say in honor of your birthday, I planted a tree in Israel, right? And then it was this card. It says, in your day to water is Wednesday. Okay. So, the Gemara explains what's going on over here. It says on the 1st of Nisan, it's Rosh Hashanah L'Malachim. So Rosh Hashanah, it says L'may Hilchasa. What is the significance of that? Like, why does that come into play? Amar Rav Chizda, in other words, the Gemara is asking, I could count whenever the old king died, the new king took over. I could count whatever it is, March, April, whatever. It doesn't matter. Why? Just count from that. Why does it have to be that we have a date that's the year? So, you see, when a president takes over, for whatever reason, the old president was impeached or something. he just finishes the old term. He doesn't start it, right? That's what he does. He just finishes the old term. So it's still set at a certain date. He finishes the last person's term. So Rav Chisda says l'shtaris. There's a complication. It has to do with documents. So, and the documents has to do with a backdated document causes a legal problem, because there's you could create, if you backdate a loan, you could create a false mortgage on a property, which could affect the purchaser, right? Someone had bought the property already and it was clean. Everything was cleared, there's no loans on that, and it's good. Then you backdate a loan with a document, and all of a sudden this mortgage appears on the property that someone had just purchased, and it could get actually taken away from him just because of a backdated document. So that becomes a problem. So it's very important that the documents are not backdated. The Tanan, started in the Mishnah, a backdated document is puzzle. Nothing can happen if you post-date the document, right? If you make it ahead, it's not going to affect any purchasers if you make it ahead. It's only if you make it back that someone had already purchased it, and now all of a sudden they bought a property with a mortgage on it, and they didn't know about it. So okay, so what do we have over here? We want to make sure that we don't have post-dated, backdated documents. So it's a nice Rashi over here. Rashi goes to this example that these witnesses sign a document that there was a loan that was given in Kislev. They didn't actually see the loan, but the person admitted to the loan, and they understood that you can, if they admitted to a loan, that you can sign the document because the person's admitting on his own admission that he owes money. So they signed the document. If the borrower says, write a document that I borrowed money, so you could write that document, even though the lender isn't there, because it's his own admission. Then it turns out that they know about an actual loan that took place in Tammuz. So the document says Kislev to the 3rd year of the king, but they do know about a real loan that took place in Tammuz to the 3rd year of the king. Now, is that the same loan? And is that post-dated or backdated? It all depends on what's the 3rd year to the king. If it starts in Tishrei, so then that would be backdated. If it starts in Nisan, then it started in the king's rule started in Tammuz, then that would have been post-dated, and that's a kosher document. So anyway, that's how Rashi goes through that. Tana Rabbanos Tana Braisa. Melech she'amad be'esrim v'tisha ba'adar. Let's say the king is, I guess, coronated in the 29th of Adar. Kivin she'gia echad b'nisan also leishana. He's already in his 2nd year, one day, and he's already. But let's say he became king in the 1st of Nisan. He becomes in the 2nd year when the following Nisan comes. Okay. Amar Mar, this is how we go back and explain the Brisa. The master taught, Melech she'amad be'esrim v'tisha ba'adar, kivin she'giach b'nisan oslo shana. In that one day becomes Nisan, he is already a king for a year. Remember that, king for a day?
It's the first year that he was king.
First year that he was king. Yeah. Yeah, Rashi learns, very interesting, that when we're talking about documents here, when I want to write a document of something that took place in that year, I'm able to write to either king. even if it's before he was king, but because he was king in that year, so that whole year is to the year of such and such a king. And I can use either king, either the old king or the new king, to whatever year it was. But in that, the other Rishonim say no. You write it to the first year of the king, but only on the 29th of Adar. You can't go to the 28th of Adar and write the first year of this king because he wasn't king yet. Rashi doesn't say that. Rashi says no. 28th of Adar to the first year of such and such a king, because that's the year that he became king.
Or the other king.
Or the old king was also the 8th year of the other king. I hear. Okay.
Maybe Levi would have given you a trophy for that.
The Gemara says, Hakamash Malan, this is teaching me.
No, but let's say back to Rashi's point, it'd be a little bit tricky because the last king was king for 10 years. The new king and Test other is the king for 1 year. So you can't write, you'd have to write either the first year of his or the 10th year of his.
Right.
You couldn't, it wouldn't be the first year of pick which king you want.
No. It's the first year of the new king or the 10th year of the old king. Yeah. I think others say that, no, you can't do that. You have to write to the 10th year of this king and the first year of that king.
Double.
Yeah. Yeah. No, in the lawyers, Danielle, in the lawyers' documents, they have like all of these legal terms that they probably have to put in. They repeat things to make sure that no doesn't get confused in any way.
But if the king served up until Test Adar, that whole year wouldn't even be counted because it wasn't completed. It wasn't up until Nisan, no?
No, so he would be, let's say he served up until the 28th of Adar. So he's considered, let's say that was his 10th year. So that year is called his 10th year.
Okay.
Yeah, it's called his 10th year. It's just the new king is already starting a second year a day later. Okay, so Kamash Malan, how Kamash Malan, this teaches us the Nisan Rosh Hashanah L'Malachim. It's teaching us that Nisan is the first of the kings, and that you can count one day and it's considered an entire year. You're already king already for a full year. Okay.
You really believe he was king for a year? He was king in a year.
Okay. Considered a year. And he's in his second year of being king. But if he became king only in Nisan, the first of Nisan, so when does he enter his second year? A full year later. The Gemara says Pshita. That's obvious. So the Gemara says like Tzricha. No, it's necessary to say such a thing. The Imno Aleh Me Adar. They already decided that he should be king in Adar, November. And Ma'odetema Nimle Tartishnin. Maybe we should say that it's already in his second year because they decided that he should be king. So, Kamash Malan, that no. It's different. The problem is that the word imnu is a little bit confusing. Imnu could mean that they decided, agreed upon. Imnu could also mean that they appointed. Mani is to appoint. Limanos. So it could mean that they appointed him and he never actually ruled. So the translation of this word is going to change things. Yeah. Sometimes, at least in the Roman history, the king would die and then they would appoint some general that was in in Egypt or something. They would wait for him to get back and then he would be king. But everyone at the Senate already agreed that he was king. But then he would come back and they'd make the. What are you thinking of?
He addressed it like he. Who was that? Was his friend? He got mad because he could not be.
Oh, Vespasian. Yeah, that's an example. That's a good example. Trophy. Taner Rabbana was taught in the Brisa. Meis Ba'adar is another Brisa, very similar, but it's just another Brisa, very similar to the one we just said. This had Tosefta Perek Aleph, and what did the one before say? Nothing. Okay. Meis ba'adar v'amar acher tachtav ba'adar. The king died in Adar, and the new king was appointed in Adar. Meinin shana lezel lezeh. So here, it's counted as a year for this one or for that one. See the Rashi? You could write any year, any date in the document that you like. You like the old king, you write to the old king. You write to the new king. It's fine, and it sounds from Rashi that it doesn't matter when in the year. That's what's going on. You see that? It's the Rashi lozel lezeh. Meis b'Nisan v'amar acher tachtav b'Nisan. Let's say he died in Nisan, and the new king was appointed. Meinin shana lezel lezeh. You can still write to whichever king you want. Why? Because he started the year, so it's really to that king as well. Meis ba'adar v'amar acher tachtav b'Nisan. The king died in Adar, and the new king wasn't appointed till Nisan. Meinin rishona l'rishon v'shniya l'sheni. Okay, so then you have to divide it up. You can't write 1 year prior to the ruling of such and such a king, or a year after such and such a king. You can't do that. You have to write to the year of the king that was in that year, right? Amar Mar, we go, yeah. I don't think so. They didn't count from Bereshis. We had a minyan shtaris. Minyan shtaris started in 3448. It was to the rule of Alexander, or to Alexander's death or something, and the Jewish people accepted it. We'll use minyan shtaris because, and minyan shtaris means accounting for the documents. They used it because it was really, they really felt they were counting to Yetzias Mitzrayim, because Yetzias Mitzrayim was 2448. So it was just 1,000 years off, exactly 1,000 years off. So it's great, because you just changed there was a secret number in there that.
There must be some reason that you're from Bereshit was used that.
Right.
We could be accurate about it. First 10 generations were wiped out. That's we're cool.
So if the
Yeah.
king reigns after Nisan, that's the second. Right?
So if he reigns, if he's
Because he-
appointed before Nisan,
Yes.
and he continues over Rosh Chodesh Nisan,
Mhm.
so then he's in his second year.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, my father's son, he showed me this thing years ago about the missing 168 years from our calendar or something. Familiar with this? It was an article from Rabbi Schwab in the selected writings, in the
So that's
very interesting article. We're missing 168 years. It has to do with the Persian kings. We have only 4 Persian kings, and in conventional history, I think there's 10 Persian kings, which would make the second Beis Hamikdash, which we believe is 420 years, it would be 580 years or something. And there's many different explanations to what happened to these years, but Rabbi Schwab's view was that Chazal specifically hid the secret information from us so that we shouldn't figure out when Mashiach's coming. We're not supposed to know exactly. It's supposed to be mysterious. So, yeah. It's a big discussion. Jewish historians love this topic. Okay. Amar Mar. We go back and we talk about this brisa. Meis ba'adar v'amar acher tachtav ba'adar. If the king died in Adar, and there's a new king and that's appointed right away in Adar, so meinin shana lezel lezeh, you can count either king for that year. Or it says pshita. Well, that's obvious. It says ma'od tema shatel beit shrei maninan. Could think that there was a way of counting this year to the old king. You can't count this year to the new king because we already have a title for this year, it's such and such a year of such and such a king. Now he died, but you just continue that. You can't count to a new king. That could be confusing. Well, Kamash Malan, that no, it's not so. You can count to the new king as well. Okay. Meis benisan v'manachet tachta benisan. What happens if he dies in Nisan, the old king, and the new king is appointed in Nisan? So Man and Shana Lazel is there. The same story. You count for 2 years. So Gemara says Pshita, there were the 2 kings. You can count in the same year. That's obvious. Well, Mao the Tema Kiamrin Yamechad B'Shana Chashav Shana B'Seif Shana Aval B'Tchila Shana Layamrina Kamash Malan. You see, we mentioned this before, that one day is considered an entire year. When did we say that? That's if the king was appointed on Chavtes Adar, he's now in his 2nd year on the 1st of Nisan. But do we say that if the king was around for 8 years, let's say, and then it's Rosh Chodesh Nisan, okay, and he dies Beis Nisan or Aleph Nisan, or whatever. So do we say that he's now in his 9th year? Is one day considered a year? Well, we said that one day was a year for Chavtes Adar, but do we say that one day is considered a full year for the beginning of the year? Maybe Chavtes Adar could be considered a whole year because the year is completed. But do we say that that's one day is considered a whole year when it just starts? So Kamash Malan, that we do say that. And if you want to write the cinnamon buns here, so that's some excitement in the room. So
It's our sponsor for today. Cinnamon buns by Malky. Make sure they're on the today. 305-877-4142.
okay. So Kamash Malan, that you count one day is considered a year, whether it's the end of the year or the beginning of the year. Let's say the old king died in Adar and the new king is appointed in Nisan. Okay, so sort of obvious, right? The old year is for the old king and the new year is for the new king. Gemara says Pshita, that's obvious. It says they appointed the new king in Adar. And now we add in one more detail. And this is the son of the old king. See, we already had a brisa that told us that they appointed him in Adar, but he only began to rule in Nisan. He only counts from Nisan. So we have another brisa. Why do we need another brisa? So to tell us the same thing. So this new brisa adds in one more detail, that he was actually the son of the old king. So that should have been enough, that he's not only did the old king die in Adar and everyone agreed, but he's even the son. It's like an inheritance, and it should go over. He just didn't start to rule.
I don't think anyone appointed the king. It wasn't a democratic vote. The king appointed himself. It was prior to when he was what's the word I'm looking for? When he was inaugurated.
Right.
He appointed himself.
Right. However,
the question is, when was the inauguration? When was it made? When did he make it official?
However, there was a Senate and there was a I don't know what they call them, Praetorian Guard or something that controlled everything. If they didn't want him, he wasn't the king. So there was some sort of appointment there. And
he told them what they want.
Yeah, if it's referring to Gaish kings, then yeah. No, Taisa said before the Malachim, Taisa says that it's referring to Jewish kings. But Rashi seems to say that it's referring to everything because of Shalom Malchus. Shalom Malchus sounds like non-Jewish kings. I'm sorry, Daniel.
Oh, yeah, what does it mean to be inaugurated, to assume office? I guess what goes on there?
Yeah, what does it mean to assume office in those days? I don't know.
More importantly, that you collect taxes.
Yeah. The accountant says to collect the taxes, the what are you, a sheriff? The sheriff says to who has the guns.
Makes
Those are
sense.
the answers to this. Sounds like that Yiddish song with the chazan. Everyone describes the chazan like the way there was this song. Okay, so maybe we should count him as the second tier. Kamash Malan, no, we don't do that because he didn't assume office until Nisan. So even though he's the son of the king. Okay, let's take a look at this. Amar Rabbi Yechanan. How do you know? What's the source for this? I mean, it could be arbitrary, but we look for a biblical source. Shenemar, a very important date in Jewish history is when Shlomo Melech decides he's going to build the Beis Hamikdash. It's 480 years from when the Jewish people left Egypt. Like, that's a very important date. That tells us a lot of things. So we know when, based on that, we can do a lot of calculations. And it's in the fourth year of his rule, in Chodesh Ziv. Chodesh Ziv is the second month. What is Chodesh Ziv? So that's Iyar.
They didn't name the months.
They didn't. Yeah, we only have like 2 months or something that have a name. What else? Well, there was another month that had a name besides for Chodesh Ziv. I forgot. The Yerechai Sanim. Yerechai Sanim was Tishrei in Chodesh Ziv. Otherwise, it was just Chodesh Rishon, Chodesh Hasheni. So.
Bull also. I think Cheshvan was called Bull.
Yeah, there's Bull. Right.
Yeah.
What was that?
Cheshvan.
Yeah.
Have to do with Mabul, maybe something.
Yeah. Very interesting. We have the Persian names, right? Yeah, it's a big question why some of them are like they're gods, where Tammuz was a god. And whatever. So, right. Yeah, our calendar, probably March was probably Nisan. Usually we say April is, but March was Nisan. So it would go March, April, May, June, July, August, September. What's 7? October is 8, November, and December would be 10. So if they're starting from Pesach, and Pesach, let's say was March, it was an early year. But then it fits the September, October, November, all those numbers fit perfectly. So Makish, what we're doing here is we're looking for counting kings. This fits with the way we were saying that it's the Jewish kings, according to Taisvus. We're counting the kings from Nisan. What's our source? So we're comparing Malchus Shlomo Yitzias Mitzrayim to the Exodus of Egypt. Ma Yitzias Mitzrayim in Nisan, just like the Exodus was in Nisan. Af Malchus Shlomo in Nisan. This is a hekesh, a comparison, and it's quoted in the same pasuk. So we're going to say that that's the comparison. Yitzias Mitzrayim Gufei Minol and Nisan Meninin. I know when it happened, Yitzias Mitzrayim. But how do you know that Yitzias Mitzrayim is counted from Nisan? It could be that when Tishrei came around, we already started to count the second year from Yitzias Mitzrayim. Right? There's one more factor here. Not just when it happens, but how we count it. Dilma mitishrei menina. Maybe we start counting the second year from Tishrei. That's a very important question. It says Leisal Kadaitach. Don't think like that. Tiksiv, Bayal Aaron Akayan El Harahar Al Pi Hashem. Aaron Akayan goes to Harahar. That's his burial place. Vayam Hashem, and he passes away there. Bishnas Arbayim L'Tzeis Bnei Yisrael Meretz Mitzrayim. It's the 40th year of the Jewish people leaving Egypt. B'Chodesh HaChamishi B'Echad L'Chodesh. That's the only yard site in the Torah. Is on the first of the 5th month, which is Av. Why? Because Nisan, Iyar, Sivan, Tammuz, Av is the 5th month. Okay, well, that doesn't tell me anything yet. It just tells me that it's the 5th month. with the months, we know we count from Nisan. The problem is the 40th year, how's that being counted? Is that being counted from Nisan or is that being counted from Tishrei? It's 40th year from leaving Egypt. Now it says, it was in the 40th year, this is the beginning of Dvarim, and it's in the 11th month. 11th month is Shvat. On the first of the month, Diber Moshe. Now, Mida Koi Be'av, if you're in the month of Av, the Karle Shnas Arbaim, and it's the 40th year, now that was right before Sefer Dvarim, Aaron passes away, right? Aaron passes away in Chukas, at the end of Chukas. So it's in the 40th year and it's in Av. Moshe in Shvat is in the 40th year and he starts to give his speech, the Mishnah Torah. If Tishrei was a cutoff point and the year should change, then that would be the 41st year. But if Nisan was the cutoff point, then it's still the 40th year, so it fits. Michlal, the Rosh Hashanah Lav Tishrei, that implies that Rosh Hashanah is not Tishrei. That's not the cutoff point for counting from Yitzias Mitzrayim. The Gemara says, Bishlai Meheich. It works out well. It's good when we're discussing Aaron. Mefar still Yitzias Mitzrayim. It says clearly it's the 40th year to Yitzias Mitzrayim. That it says in the pasuk. However, when we're talking about Moshe's speech, which was in Shvat, it doesn't actually say that it's the 40th. It says the 40th year, but it doesn't say the 40th year to what? It could be the 40th year. Ella, hi, mimai deal Yitzias Mitzrayim. How do you know that it's Yitzias Mitzrayim? Dilma la kamas Mishkan. Maybe it's the 40th year from the constructing of the Mishkan, which was a year later. And then it's the 40th, it's the 41st year to Yitzias Mitzrayim, but the 40th year from the Mishkan.
And can't we see how many years we've been in the midbar and then just kind of calculate from that?
Yeah, but we don't know how we calculate Yitzias Mitzrayim. When it says 480 years to Yitzias Mitzrayim,
400 and
well, by Shlomo Melech, it says that
Oh,
he decided to build a
Right.
base of English for 480 years. We're looking to see that Yitzias, we're learning that the king starts in Nisan because Yitzias Mitzrayim is counted from Nisan. But how do we know Yitzias Mitzrayim is really counted from Nisan? Maybe Yitzias Mitzrayim is counted from Tishrei. So we say, well, we're proving it because Moshe Rabbeinu's speech was in Shvat, which is the 40th year. But how do you know that that's the 40th year from Yitzias Mitzrayim? Okay. So Kedamar of Papa, the answer is, right, Papa says, Shnas Esrim L'Gzeir Shava. Achanami Shnas Arbaim L'Gzeir Shava. Rav Papa says, later on, it's going to say, we're going to have this, a Gzeir Shava, verbal analogy. It says in one place, Shnas Esrim, it says another place, Shnas Esrim. We say it's the same thing. So to over here, we have these two psukim. Shnas Arbaim and Shnas Arbaim, we don't want to say that it's for a different count. We say it's to the same count. It's a Gzeir Shava.
Rabbi, but the Miraglim, usually I would think it's 40 years from the Miraglim, because that's when the 40 years in the desert was established, right?
Uh-huh.
When did that happen?
They were sent from Kadesh, what was it? What does it say?
They went there in the month of Tammuz, right? And they came back on Tisha B'Av.
Right.
But that wasn't the first year, though, right?
It was, I think, in the second year.
Second
Yeah.
year.
So they were in the desert, you want to say, for 40 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was some sort of calculation about that it's really only 39 years
Oh.
from the Meraglim. Yeah. I forget the ins and outs of that. Miketz Arbaim Yaim. I don't remember, but there was, if it's not a Gemara, it was commentaries on the Chumash there. But it really turns out to be 39 from the Meraglim. What happened to they got a free year, 1 day. It was a year per day, they got 1 day free.
Like the Makkos. You get a break.
Oh, yeah.
The last one.
Are not Shemitah available?
Oh, you mean from my Sabracious?
My separations.
Yeah.
So,
We actually don't. We actually count from after coming into the land, after the 14 years of that we count. Shemitah and Yovel, I think we count. This is like 4 different opinions, but I think we count from coming into the land of Israel.
that's right, that's
Yeah.
So is there nothing that we collectively required to count back to my separations?
I don't think so. Yeah. It turns out that this year is divisible by 7, 5782.
Oh, yeah.
So it comes out that we're actually a Shemitah year. Even if you count from my Sabracious, but that would depend on what you do with Yovel, because there's a machlekes how Yovel works. Does it restart, or is Yovel the first of the new count? So that's a machlekes. Basically, if you want to keep all the opinions of Shemitah and Yovel, there's never a year that's not Shemitah. If you want to follow every opinion, yeah. That's why Taisus and Ksuba says don't go to Eretz Yisrael, because you won't be able to keep the laws. And it's like, why not just keep the laws? I mean, like, it turns out because if you want to follow every opinion, you can't. But so we had to paskin certain things that no, this is the way we follow. We're not following that opinion. And it has to be determined. Right.
Seems
Right. Oh, it sounds like it. Yeah. Besides for the Persian issue. So.
I get back to my question. Why is that just not an obvious answer?
Of my Sabracious.
I got a question, the next question.
Yeah. Reb Naftali is asking, why don't you just use my Sabracious? Lebriya Sa'ilam. Leminyan Shanu Mainin Khan. Lebriya Sa'ilam. That's what they say. Yeah.
Question. Are you counting from Adam, from Tishrei, number 1?
Yeah.
Last Gracious was before him.
Oh.
The year that didn't exist.
Oh.
So how could you
So
count from
the
the year that
doctor,
didn't exist?
Dr. Stein is saying, because it would be confusing if you count from Adam or you count from the year before Adam, which has 6 days.
6 days. It didn't exist.
It's 5 days. So no, but it sounded from Rashi that we were counting from Shtaris because of the kings. The kings wanted us to give them honor. So now it says, "Mimai de Maisa de Av Kadim Dilma Maisa de Shvat Kadim." This is only going to work if Av came before Shvat. Now it tells us, well, obviously Rosh Hashanah, the first of Tishrei wasn't the cutoff date because then they couldn't both be in the same year. But if it was Shvat and then Adar, Devarim, Moshe Rabbeinu's speech, and then Aaron dies, then that would fit. It says, that's impossible. You can't think like that. Because Moshe Rabbeinu is talking about after the war with Sichain in the beginning of Devarim. Now, you see, the war with Sichain was after Aaron died. Moshe Rabbeinu can't be talking about it. The speech of Dvarim, which is on Rosh Chodesh Shvat, has to be after Aaron's death, because he discusses Sichain, the war with Sichain, which took place after Aaron's death. Because when Aaron was alive, Sichain was still alive. Aaron was alive, Sichain was alive. The Ksiv, because it says, "Vayishma Knani Melech Arad." The Knani, the king of Arad, heard Mashmur Shama. What did he hear? Shama Shmeis Aaron. He heard that Aaron died. V'nestalko Anani HaKavod, and the clouds of glory have left. Because he understood that now we can wage war against Israel. behind the ksiv, and that's what the meaning of the pasuk. In other words, the Jewish people lost their protection that was in the merit of Aaron, the clouds of glory that were protecting them, disappeared. It says that all the people saw Aaron, Kigav Aaron, that Aaron died. Now, Rabavo says, Al Tikri Vayiru Ela Vayiru. There's an extra yud in there, which makes it not that they saw, but they were shown. That means that there was something like some covering came off and they were exposed. That's the word. They were able to be seen. The word key, yeah, we have Rashi says this all the time. That the word key in Hebrew is a nice long Rashi here. Who wants to look at this? A bunch of psukim and gives examples of the word key being translated in different ways. So the word key could mean could mean if, which is like ki karikan sipar, if you come across the bird's nest. Dilma could mean maybe. That's kisaymer b'vavcha, like lest you say. Ella could mean like but or only. And it could also mean daha. Daha means is Aramaic for because. So what we're saying is Vayiro kalaida ki gava Aaron, because Aaron.
Isn't Ela like more like rather?
Yeah, rather. Or but or however. You see, each of these words can be also has all of its translations in it. So daha, because why were the people exposed? Because Aaron died. Okay. The Gemara says, "Mi dami." 1 second. This you're telling me about the battle with Sichain because Moshe Rabbeinu discussed this, and you're telling me that this has to do with the war with Kanani, the king of Arad. What's the connection? It says Hasam Kanan Hachas Sichain. You bring me a proof that that Aaron passed away, and then there's the war with Canaan, and therefore there's the war with Sichain, but that's Canaan, that's not Sichain. It says Tanahu Sichain hu Arad hu Canaan. No, it's all the same battle. It's all the same people. Sichain, why is he called Sichain? Shadaim al-Sayach by Midbar. Similar to this Sayach. What type of animal is that? Is it
It's a little horse.
What is it?
Isn't a Saich a little horse?
A little horse? A little horse. Canaan al Shem Malchusei. His king, his country was called Canaan. Mashma Yarad Shmai, Melech Arad, man, that was his name. Ikadamri, there are others that say Arad Shadaim ala Aroid, that he was similar to an Aroid. Aroid is a wild donkey. Bamidbar, Canaan al Shem Malchusei, so there's no question what Canaan is. Mashma Sichan Shmai, and his name was Sichan. Okay. Let's leave it over here. What we just proved was that Aaron's death was before Dvarim, which tells me that Yitzias Mitzrayim is being counted from Nisan, not from Tishrei. Okay.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Have a good day.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.